What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson. It's Senior Bowl week, and that means there's a bunch of NFL draft prospects who are turning up down in Mobile, Alabama, boosting their draft stock and rising up draft boards. And the New York Giants are there. Joe Schoen is there, getting an up-close and personal look at a lot of these prospects, and we want to talk about a few of them. We want to talk about who's standing out. There's a bunch of mid-round prospects who are maybe rising up into that day 1 to 2 range, and we're really excited. I mean, some of them, there's one guy who he's not necessarily built that well, but man, nobody can cover him. There's another guy who has experience playing tackle, looks like he could be a Pro Bowl guard at the next level. So there's a lot of storylines to talk about from the Senior Bowl, and we're excited. And keep in mind, the New York Giants historically love drafting players from the Senior Bowl. Dave Gettleman historically loved taking players from the Senior Bowl. Joe Schoen has continued that trend. So a lot of the guys that we talk about from the Senior Bowl, you might end up seeing their name or hearing their name get called on draft night for the New York Giants in April. So we're going to go ahead and dive into some of these standout players and discuss where we think the Giants could draft them or whether or not they should, and really just have a kind of fun conversation, hopefully not fighting today like we did yesterday, about the Senior Bowl prospects. Alex, how are you doing today, my friend? How are you feeling after I gave you a couple black eyes in yesterday's debate? And what are your thoughts on the Senior Bowl this week?
I'm doing pretty good, man. Black eyes have healed up nicely, and I will say this. There are some really solid prospects at the Senior Bowl, but one thing I want to get off my chest is that the Giants have overcommitted to the Senior Bowl. It doesn't work the way they think it does. How many seniors have they drafted? How many of them actually have turned into quality NFL players? There's maybe a very small percentage, but the reason they go after players at the Senior Bowl is because they're experienced and because they usually have a better ability to step in and play day one. And for the Giants, playing on day one is kind of a necessity because we just don't have that much talent, which is kind of what happened last year. We drafted a couple guys in the Senior Bowl, like Tyrone Tracy, that stepped in and contributed immediately. And now you kind of think about what we need this upcoming season: corner, offensive line, quarterback. And I want to start off the quarterback situation. Obviously, we've seen Jalen Milroe. We've seen Jackson Dart. Milroe has looked horrible. I mean, I wouldn't say horrible, but he's looked very inconsistent, I'd say, by most accounts. The little tiny little mittens he has for hands has not helped him with his accuracy and obviously the fumbling issues. He fumbled 11 times this past season. He was very inaccurate. He bounced a lot of balls off the dirt. I watched a couple of those. He threw a really awful interception. He hasn't looked great, and I think his stock is plummeting at the moment. I think that I had him in the second round, but I honestly think he's more like a third round pick now. That's kind of where I have him. I don't think he's that good. I don't think his measurements are as impressive as I thought they were going to be. And I think his arm talent is extremely suspect. He needs a lot of work, a lot of time. And I just don't think the Giants specifically have the time to give him. So I would not touch Jalen Milroe. That's my personal opinion, Anthony. I know you probably have a differing thought.
No, I don't have a differing thought. I have the same thought. Jalen Milroe has completely tanked down all draft boards, mine included. I think that the hand measurements is a major concern. We've never seen a quarterback succeed in the NFL with that hand measurement. If that doesn't concern you as a fan because you watch the way that Jalen Milroe ran in the SEC, I don't know what can convince you. All of the NFL teams are going to look at that as a major red flag, so we should too, because we don't know more than most of the NFL teams. Some of them are pretty poorly run, and sometimes I feel like I know more than the Giants because of how bad they've been. But we, generally speaking, don't know more than these teams. So if they're looking at his unprecedentedly small hand size and saying smaller hands than Kenny Pickett's the best quarterback that we've ever seen with that relative hand size, we can probably assume that he's not going to find that success. We talk about his accuracy issues, his inability to get good zip on the ball downfield and place the ball accurately. The hand size is related to that. So as great of an athlete as he is, the hand size is a major concern. Plus, let's just take the measurements out of the equation. He has looked terrible during the Senior Bowl practices. I've been trying to watch every single clip of Jalen Milroe that I can from these practices. I've been talking to people. Shout out to whoever has been in my DMs at the Senior Bowl, giving me some info. Appreciate you. Everyone who's a Fireside Giants listener who's at the Senior Bowl right now. People have been giving me some info. Every single source that you can find about Jalen Milroe at the Senior Bowl will tell you he has looked terrible. Can't hit an open receiver. So you combine that with what we already saw, all the red flags on his film, the bad measurements. I don't know how you can justify taking the guy in the second round. He is not a second round prospect, especially when relative to previous quarterback classes. We were really only talking about him and some of these other guys as being drafted earlier than they should because of the weak draft class at quarterback. But if you put him up against a normal quarterback draft class, even last year's draft class was above average, so not even normal, but a normal quarterback draft class, we're not talking about Jalen Milroe as a potential first to second round pick. Never. So he's not that. He is a day 3 pick, and he has almost solidified himself as a day 3 pick because of how poorly he has performed through the first couple practices at the Senior Bowl. Now, Alex, I will say we can give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he goes into the Senior Bowl game this upcoming weekend, and he's the Senior Bowl MVP and just puts together a phenomenal performance. Then our takes might change, and maybe we boost his draft stock back up, and so does the rest of the league. But what we've seen over the past couple of days, and what we know as being his biggest red flags on his game film and in his statistical profile, he's not a very exciting prospect at this point in the process. Again, it can change. By the end of the week, it could change. By the end of the combine, it could change. Sure, all of these things are true. But right now, I am souring on Jalen Milroe as much of the NFL draft community is, and as much of the scouts in the NFL themselves are. So it is a little bit disappointing to see the way that he's performed. However, Alex, Jackson Dart, on the other hand, he's looked good. And I think that he's been very impressive throughout the process that we've been going through, watching the film, diving into the stats and the analytics, and now seeing the way that he's performed at the Senior Bowl. Jackson Dart is definitely moving up draft boards. In fact, I know I sent you earlier today, Alex, there were some scouts who were there that were saying that they're actually moving him up into that first round range, potentially competing in the likes of a Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, and now it's Jackson Dart in that conversation. So rather than the previous conversation of Dart versus Milroe, it actually seems like he's moving into that upper tier, which is very interesting and exciting for the New York Giants just to have more options at the quarterback position that are actually intriguing. So what are your thoughts on the way that Jackson Dart has performed? Again, I didn't mean to come across too harsh on Jalen Milroe, but I think you're in the same boat as me. He's just tumbling down draft boards, ours included. Meanwhile, Jackson Dart looking to be a much more exciting prospect than we initially believed.
Yeah. I mean, look, my original thought was I think I had Dart closer to Sanders than I think Sanders was to Ward. I think Ward, there was some red flags we saw in the film that certainly popped up for me, and obviously his ceiling is sky high, but his floor is also quite low because of his style of play. They're just totally different in every way. What I do like about Dart, and I think there are red flags, there is things that needs to be tweaked. I like that he's younger, almost a year and a half younger, than Sanders and Ward. So that does play a big part for me in terms of, where he is physically. I think there's a lot to progress with there, and his ability to make stuff happen off script, his ability to make accurate throws, his ability to throw downfield, all those things stand out as major benefits and pluses. I think he does need to tweak his fundamentals a bit. He does sometimes drop his fundamentals in key moments when he's trying to throw the ball downfield. Sometimes he doesn't use his body correctly. He tries to use all arm. He doesn't load correctly. There's just some things that need to be refined, and those things will happen with time and experience. But he's tough as nails. He's a very, very solid athlete. The guy, he's probably the best out of the three, Sanders, Ward, and Dart. Dart's the best athlete of that bunch, in my opinion. And I think that, with the right system around him, he could be a very solid NFL player. Now, he needs growth. He needs time. But I think the Giants are going to sign a bridge quarterback, and they can provide a guy like Dart with a bit of time. He has a gunslinger's mentality. He's a baller. He's willing to lay it all on the line. Yeah, he lost some of those key games down the stretch, or, he struggled to kind of put it all together. But I'm not really concerned about that, to be quite honest, because we watched Sanders flop in the bowl game too. So I'm not gonna sit here and act like Dart's bad performance in the fourth quarter at times, is a limitation. It could be a result of the scheme or his receiver. We have to actually watch those things back. But it happens to every quarterback. I've seen it happen to Cam as well against a weaker opponent this past season. So I do think that every quarterback has those moments. But I'm looking at more of the consistency in their game and the fundamentals. Dart has a lot of really great traits, and I think that if a team can figure out how to develop them, he's going to be a good NFL quarterback. And at the Senior Bowl, a lot of the things and the questions people had about him was, well, obviously, let's see what his arm looks like. So far, so good. And the other thing, the measurables have all been very solid. I know he's not the tallest guy in the world, but it's you see shorter guys, like he's 6'2", I believe. You see types of guys like that, they do succeed in the NFL. I don't think it's much of a problem. What I will say is one of the biggest red flags is his sometimes tendency to hyper-focus on the first read. That's something that they wanted to test him at in the Senior Bowl, and they did test him that, and he was able to process very well at 11v11. So I do think that they got a lot of information about whether he's capable of operating in an NFL-style offense. I mean, of course, it's a really small sample. We're talking about a practice, not a real game environment, so it's different. But they were testing him against, some of the best prospects coming out of college. So I do think that they got a little bit of information to see, all right, he can excel and he can thrive and he can survive in these moments. So, when it comes to Dart, I think he's a first round pick. I think he's a back end first round pick, but I still don't hate the idea of going BPA, whether it's Carter or Travis Hunter, and then trading back up into the first round and getting a Dart for the 5th-year option. I still do not hate. Now, of course, it's a much more risky play because you don't know where he's going to go entirely, but I still don't hate that decision. I still don't hate that move because you get a really nice upside quarterback and a bad quarterback class. It's already a risk taking one of these guys, and you get a blue chip prospect in that instance. So I still do not hate that kind of thought process.
I don't hate that thought process. I love that thought process. I mean, obviously, I've been saying that for a very long time. If the Giants are going to take a quarterback, take one in the first round. Get that 5th-year option, especially if you plan on signing a solid bridge quarterback and basically redshirting your rookie for the first year of his contract. Have to get him in the first round, get that 5th-year option. It's crucial. Alex, though, I want to talk more about Dart and my thoughts on him and what we've seen from the Senior Bowl research. But first and foremost, I want to bring up something related to what you just mentioned. Do you think there's a world where the New York Giants try to add a second first-round pick prior to the draft? Now, I'm not talking about on draft night making a trade similar to the one that you just mentioned where they move up from 34 to around pick 30 and they take Dart there. Do you think that there's an opportunity for the Giants to maybe do what the Vikings did last year? Prior to the draft, the Vikings had, what was it, just the 10th overall pick? When the draft began, or like a month before the draft, they made a trade and they acquired that second first-round pick that gave them the ability to, first of all, draft 2 prospects or to trade up into the top 5 if they needed to. Do you think there's a world where the New York Giants try something like that, where they flip their second-round pick plus a player that maybe they want to offload and gain an additional mid-first-round pick, and that could be the opportunity for them to draft a Dart or whoever, just having a second first-round pick? Do you think there's an avenue for the Giants to do that?
To get another second-round pick?
No, first-round pick.
To get another first... Okay.
Like the Vikings last year, the whole thing I just explained.
Do I think there's an avenue? I mean, in this draft class, I'm not so sure. Like, is it worth it? Is it worth that? Like, you know what I mean?
Okay, let me explain again. So, the Giants picking at 3 right now. Last year, the Minnesota Vikings were picking at 10. They needed a quarterback, weren't sure if they were getting up. They ended up trading and getting an additional mid-first round pick so that they could go quarterback and BPA with 1 or 2 of those picks. Right. That's what I'm asking. Do you think the New York Giants could somehow find a way to get an additional middle first-round pick? That way they could go BPA or quarterback at 3 or BPA quarterback at 17, 20, wherever they are there. So that would open up the avenue of Travis Hunter at 3 and maybe a Jackson Dart at 15 or 20, or vice versa. Shedeur Sanders at 3 and maybe a top-tier edge rusher at 15, 20, whatever.
What did the Vikings trade again to get that mid first round pick?
That's a fantastic question. I'll have to search it while you ponder. While you ponder.
That's where I got confused.
While you ponder the potential of this, I will search it for you.
Because that's where I got confused. I was like, wait, how did we get that first round pick?
I'm asking if you think that's something that the Giants should do. Should they entertain this idea?
Yes.
It's supposed to be a brief question that I probably knew the answer to, but I want to hear your thoughts on it.
Okay, no, because obviously, like, what we give up to get that plays a part, and that's why I got a little confused. But I do think that should be a viable option if it doesn't involve sending a first-round pick from next year's draft class to move up. Obviously, it have to be a second for next year. I think that's what they did. I think they packaged their second from next year and this year.
So they had a trade. The Minnesota Vikings acquired pick number 22 and 232. So that's like a 7th-round pick. In the first round, pick 22, in exchange for pick number 42, 188, and, like you said, a 2025 second. So they traded their second-round pick, a future second-round pick, to move up and get a second first-round pick.
And
something you're interested in?
It's a great question. In this draft class, yes, I would do it because simply put, the only way I would do it is if I'm taking one of those blue chip prospects at 3. I'm not taking a quarterback at 3 if I execute a move like that. I'll take Dart at 17 or whatever, mid-round, first-round pick. I'd rather do that. I'd rather go Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter and then Dart instead of just taking Sanders or Ward, because there is very, very few blue chip prospects in this draft class. And if we have the ability to walk away with one of those guys, you automatically win this draft. You know what I mean? Because there's only 10 first round graded players by most accounts in this first round. If you're able to walk away with one of those top, like really top refined prospects, you're in a good spot in terms of like walking away from this draft feeling like you got better. And I feel that way. I don't think that Sanders and Dart are as far apart as some people seem to believe. I like both prospects a lot. You know, I know you disagree with that. It's cool. I just think that
I don't
Dart's
fully
upside.
disagree with it. I really like them both, but
I like both. I think Sanders is better. Let me make that known. I think Sanders is better, but I don't think he's 3 to 17 better. You know what I mean? I think he's more like 3 to 10 or 3 to 9 better. Like that's a pretty wide margin. You know what I'm trying to say? Like
I get what you're trying to say, but I'm pretty sure you don't think that Shedeur Sanders is worth the 3rd overall pick.
I don't
anyway.
think that, but I'm just saying in context with this draft class.
I just wanted to clarify that because this is my thing: is I got to make these faces and remind you the pack of wolves are coming to eat you, Alex.
I know,
I'm here
dude,
to protect you. I'm
I don't
trying
care,
my
man.
best.
Clearly, I don't care. I just like it being eaten alive, man. That's just kind of what I've signed up for. So you know, people hear 3 words and then take shots at me in the YouTube comments. It's fine. But I really don't care. It's go for it. It's literally I do not care. We all want the same thing for the Giants to be good. I'm just giving my opinion on prospects. And the truth is like I like Sanders a lot. I don't think he's worth a 3rd overall pick because this is a bad quarterback class. We're just forcing it because we need a quarterback. That's what the Giants are about to do. And Dart, I don't think Dart's a whole round worse than Sanders. You know what I mean? I think that he's maybe half of a first round, if that. And I do think that Dart's upside is equivalent to Sanders, if not better, in my opinion. I think that Sanders is much more refined, but Dart's off-script capabilities and his athleticism give him a ceiling that is higher, in my opinion. So that's just how I feel because he has some tangible traits that I do think Sanders will never reach. But Sanders has a lot better technique and fundamentals. But those things you can learn. Those things can be taught. Some of the stuff that Dart has, you cannot teach. And some of the things that Cam Ward has, you cannot teach. And those are the things that separate my grades sometimes in terms of upside and winning at the NFL level. So, with that being said, I don't know if any of those guys are going to pan out. I'm okay with taking Sanders because we need a freaking quarterback. That's the truth.
Yeah, but we've talked about Sanders so much. I just want to move off that.
To round about to your question, though, I would do that. I would go and I'd trade a 2nd round next year to get a mid-round first this year with the intention of getting a BPA at 3rd overall and then getting Dart in the 2nd. And with that 2nd first round pick, that's what I would do in this instance.
Okay, I'm interested in that. I just wanted to present this idea because a lot of Giants fans say, I want Jackson Dart, but where would we draft him, especially if his draft stock keeps moving? That's why I wanted to mention this because this is the exact conundrum that the Minnesota Vikings found themselves in last year. They wanted J.J. McCarthy in the 2nd round. He kept flying up draft boards, so they were like, okay, let's be smart about this. Let's gain an additional first-round pick, and that way we will be able to land him either at 10 or 22, depending on where his draft stock ultimately lands. I wanted to bring this up as a potential solution to drafting Jackson Dart, since a lot of Giants fans are interested in that. But moving on, Alex, we talked about Dart, we talked about these guys. Let's talk about some of the other standouts at the Senior Bowl this week. This guy who I want to bring up, Alex, it just amazes me. I never thought that it was possible. Could somebody with my acumen make it to the NFL? Hell yes, we can, boys. Short Kings stand up. Tez Johnson out of Oregon came in at the Senior Bowl at 5'9", 156 pounds. What do you think the size is of your boy right here? 5'9", 156 pounds. Stand up, Short Kings. Tez Johnson is representing all of us, and he was reportedly unguardable through the first several days of practice at the Senior Bowl. This kid is nice, and he reminds me a lot of Tank Dell, who's obviously become a very solid playmaker for the Houston Texans. Sure, he's undersized. Maybe his unprecedented weight is going to have him off the draft boards for several NFL teams, but hopefully not for the New York Giants, because Tez Johnson is a nasty route runner and a great playmaker who put up 10 touchdowns in back-to-back seasons at Oregon. I friggin' love this prospect. He inspires me to be great myself in my undersized abilities. I think that Tez Johnson is awesome, and I'm excited to see how he continues to perform, how he plays in the upcoming Senior Bowl game, and then, of course, once he gets to the combine, very fast, very agile, refined route runner, deep playmaking threat. Really like Tez Johnson, Alex. How do you feel about my Short King?
Tezzy. I don't know. 156? That sounds quite thin, my friend. I don't know. I think he's going to get killed in the NFL. He's going to get tossed around like a rag doll in the NFL. But he's a great route runner. Obviously, he's been dominating. I mean, at that weight though, like I can't justify a draft grade or at least a round four. It's four is the earliest I'd go for a guy like that. It's just the injuries are gonna happen at that weight, dude. He gets killed because he's running in the slot most likely at that weight. He's gonna get killed by a linebacker across the middle. He's gonna shatter into a million pieces. Like that's just what's gonna happen, man. Like he's gonna get rocked and he's gonna be sitting there like a pile of bones, and like you're gonna have to scrape him up with a freaking shovel off the field. Like that's really what I'm worried about, and like that's why I probably wouldn't go in that direction. I'm more of a LeJohntay Wester fan. He's a little bit more weight to his bones.
Here we go, LeJohntay Wester. This propaganda needs to stop. Every episode I got to hear about this guy.
No, I like him.
He's not even at. Isn't he at the Shrine Bowl? He's not even at the Senior Bowl.
He's not at the Senior Bowl.
All right. Well, all right. So Tez Johnson. Here's the question, Alex. Here's the big question. Tez Johnson. Do you think that I could run across the middle and make a catch and survive a hit from Bobby Wagner?
No, absolutely. Survive? Dude, you'd be evaporated. You'd be a dust bunny.
Well, it's not a one-to-one comparison, all right? Tez Johnson's a lot quicker and probably a lot functionally stronger than I am, even though he's the same height and weight as me. But I think he's a good player. I would definitely be interested in him. I know that I'm kind of being contradictory right now because I said that Jalen Milroe has to shoot down draft boards because of his hand size. Meanwhile, I'm talking up Tez Johnson, who's 156 pounds. Screw it. Nothing needs to make sense in this imperfect world. I just like the way he plays the game, and I think he's really fun to watch, and I would like to see him get drafted by a team early. I think his draft stock is somewhere in that 3 to 4 range, as you mentioned. You wouldn't go earlier than the 4th. I think he has boosted his draft stock into that 3rd round pretty firmly this week because he's been so unguardable. But, again, these are Senior Bowl practices. The pads are barely on. I don't even think they're doing contact drills for the cornerbacks and receivers. So I guess we'll get more of an idea in the Senior Bowl game. But again, he's just exciting to me. It inspires me. So I wanted to bring him up. Now let's talk about your guy, Alex. I'm gonna give you first crack at saying his last name. You know who it is.
Damn it. All right. So one of the guys I really like in this draft is Jonah Savaiinaea. I believe that's what the Arizona website says his name is in pronounced. So we're gonna go with that. If you think it's different, please let us know. We will correct and adjust. But this is a very, very interesting prospect. Now, I think this is a perfect round 2 acquisition for the Giants. This is a player who, during his 3-year career with Arizona, started every single season. He played 345 snaps at left tackle, 985 at right guard, and 1,057 at right tackle. That type of versatility, I mean, he was one of the best pass protectors in this draft class on the offensive line. He is a very, very, very interesting prospect. He has a great anchor, fantastic size at 6'5", 336. He has the size of a tackle, to be quite frank. But he's actually a very solid right guard. There's some clips of him at the Senior Bowl. Dominating, like just 1v1, anchor's tremendous. The footwork looks really good, like really, really, really good. The hand placement looks good. He's strong. He doesn't let go, like not in a holding sense, but more so just good placement there. But the footwork is what really impressed me. The shuffling, the anchor, the base, it all looks clean. And I know Chris Snee is there for the Giants doing a little bit of evals for the offensive line. That's a guy I could guarantee he probably locked in on and said, this is a second round pick for us. This is a guy we got to take in the second round because the Giants need a cost controlled young guard who doesn't need 15 years of development. You know, so they're so old. They're in walking boots and canes and stuff and still trying to get pushed out there. That's what Josh Zidu is right now for us. Like I just don't foresee the Giants taking another gamble in the mid rounds. Like the second round guy that can provide instant impact and instant value. That's who we need right now. So if you go with a quarterback like Sanders or Ward at 3, I fully endorse going for an offensive guard like this in the second round because you got to reinforce. Like, spend a little money at receiver, cool. Go get a veteran WR2, great. But go upgrade this offensive line for a young quarterback. We cannot afford to set another player back because our offensive line can't freaking block. So that's kind of how I feel about it right now.
I'm with you. I really like Jonah Savaiinaea. I think that he is tremendously versatile and powerful. He comes in at 6'5", 336 pounds. He's a big dude. And actually, Alex, when you take a look at his stats, I found this very interesting. There is a clear connection between his bad games and his good games in terms of where he was playing on the offensive line. So for context, for the beginning half of the season at Arizona, he was playing right tackle. This past season, he logged, for clarification's sake, 364 snaps at right tackle versus 345 at left tackle. So he started at right tackle from weeks 1 through 8. He had only 1 sack allowed through those games. It was through weeks 9 to 13 when he was starting at left tackle that he led up the other 3 sacks that he surrendered on the season. So he finished the year with 15 total pressures surrendered and 4 sacks. But again, 3 of those 4 sacks came while he was at left tackle in the final weeks of the season. Only 1 during the other weeks. He clearly plays better on the right side of the offensive line. So that's how I would view him based on his profile and where his stats have looked best in his career and where he's played his best. This is a right tackle / right guard. In fact, he's actually very similar in playing style to Jermaine Illuminor in that regard, Alex. A big mauler of a right guard / right tackle that has the versatility to play several spots on the offensive line. Keep in mind, Alex, Jermaine Illuminor, he is in the final year of his contract. The Giants only signed him to a 2-year deal. So if the Giants want to maintain that sense of versatility on their offensive line with their starting right tackle being able to fill in 3 different spots, Jonah Savanaia might make a lot of sense as that potential succession plan to Jermaine Illuminor. And again, I really like his game. He's looked great at the Senior Bowl. I mean, he's had some absolutely dominant reps. The hands are phenomenal. Pow, pow, can just take out defending or opposing defenders. So really like Jonah Savanaia. I think he's got a lot of talent, and I think this is a really good spot by you, Alex, to send him my way and mention that he is a very, very intriguing prospect for the Giants to consider on day 2 of the draft. I'm totally with you. Really like Jonah Savanaia. Who's the other guy that you want to mention? I think Mike Green, right? Oh, he went viral.
2 guys.
With that bull rush was ridiculous. I'm sure that if you haven't seen it, just go over to social media, search Mike Green. You will see it. Oh my God, he absolutely obliterated this offensive lineman. Power, just speed to power, boom, bull rush, got a hold of that guy's chest and threw him to the ground like a rag doll. It was pretty sick. The Marshall edge rusher who led the Division I college football with 17 sacks this past season, Alex. What do you really like about Mike Green, and do you think he's an option for the Giants?
The problem with Mike Green is that he's probably a first-round pick now. I know out of Marshall, smaller school, but like he is a force of nature, that dude. It gives me like, not comparison wise, but like small school, like when was it Khalil Mack came from like Buffalo, or was it Buffalo or Albany, or I think it was Buffalo. Just like small school dominate, and like Mike Green's got kind of that moxie to him. So I think he's a tremendous prospect, and he's going to probably be a first round pick. That's why I don't foresee the Giants landing a player like that. But yeah, the guy's sick. He's got crazy bend, great power. He's got all the tangible tools to be a sick NFL player. But the other guy I had in mind was Jaden Higgins, that receiver that just cooked someone on a deep route, man. He looked really, really, really good. If I look up his stats, if I can find it, like on PFF really quickly for you guys. So Jaden Higgins out of Iowa State this past season had 1,185 yards and 9 touchdowns, 67.4% reception rate. I mean, they fed him the rock, man. There were games where he had 16 targets against Texas Tech, 12 against UCF, Kansas, 13 against Utah. Like, he was getting freaking fed. So he is used to the WR1 workload at Iowa State. So he's got some really good size. I think the Giants could use a bit more size. He gives me like a bigger Darius Slayton vibe, maybe not as fast as straight line speed, but like he's got a bigger frame, a little bit more of a possession kind of frame, but the guy can run routes, man. He's got some really nice suddenness to him, really nice jab step, and when he gets going downfield, he's got some pace. So I think this is a guy the Giants could be looking at maybe in the second round. I'm not exactly sure what his draft stock is, but I think it's rising right now. So, another guy that I like in the second round, of course, I think prefer to go offensive line and then receiver in the third, just because I think, you can find really good value with receivers in the second and third, and same thing with offensive linemen, but we need a guy that's like really can step in and play in the trenches, man. Third round picks in the offensive line, they're gambles. They're more like projects most of the time, at least for the Giants. I think second round picks have a little bit better probability of hitting. So I think I would go for an offensive lineman that has some versatility and some, experience at multiple spots. And I would probably wait to the third round to get a receiver, or just invest some money in free agency there. But that's another guy that I did think looked really good. He stood out to me so far, since yesterday.
Yeah, I really like Jaden Higgins, 6'4", 215 pounds. And for some extra context on those stats that you included, Alex, he had the 5th most targets this past season, 129. I think you mentioned the number of targets, but it ranked 5th most. And he had the 6th most receptions of any 2025 draft class wide receivers. So the volume was absolutely there, as you said. You said that he's used to being a WR1 and receiving that kind of workload. The stats back that up with the amount of targets and receptions that he received. He's getting a lot of buzz right now for the way that he's played at the Senior Bowl. He rightfully deserves it. In fact, he's been getting some buzz for a while as a potential riser who could impress during these Senior Bowl and combine processes. And man, he's looked really good. He's got great late hands when the ball is coming in, good body control, and very, very quick feet for a guy his size. His release package is nice, and that's been on full display at the Senior Bowl. So that's another player. Yes, Alex, I totally agree with you. I think he's an exciting one. And if the New York Giants are looking to add some playmakers in these middle rounds, which they should be, Higgins should definitely be on their short list as one of their potential targets in this upcoming NFL draft. So really like him. Anybody else that you had in mind to discuss from these Senior Bowl risers?
Anybody else? I mean, there's so many players, dude. It's hard to actually get to all of them. So if anybody has anybody that you want us to talk about in the coming days at the Senior Bowl, happy to look at their stats, look at their profiles and whatnot. But I have been locked in on Dart. I think that's been a really, really interesting storyline as his stock continues to rise. And that offensive lineman, obviously, Jonah has also had a really good couple of days. So, there are some guys that are definitely piquing my interest, and experienced individuals, guys that have been starting and have some versatility. The Giants will walk away getting at least one player from the Senior Bowl. They always freaking do. So it's just a matter of time. But best we can do is try to identify which player they'll fall in love with. And I think Jonah, he's one of the guys they're going to fall in love with. I personally think so, because he's got experience at right tackle and right guard, his two best positions. And what do you know? Jermaine Illuminor is going into the final year of his deal, and the Giants don't have a right guard on the roster right now. So I do think that fits. It kind of kills two birds with one stone. If they could get him in the second round, I think that he will be the pick.
Very nice. I like that prediction, and I do really like Jonah Savanaia. And I want to also give a quick shout out before we close this thing out to Robert Lamastra, viewer of the channel, big fan of Fireside Giants, at the Senior Bowl right now and has been texting me updates throughout the past couple days. I appreciate you helping keep me in tune with what's going on over there. And he also says Riley Leonard is playing very well and is a very smart player, and he has been really impressive to our good friend of the channel, Robert. He had him as one of his biggest winners from the past 2 days of practice. And he also did have Jonah Savanaia, for what it's worth, and Trevor Etienne out of Georgia. Obviously, we know his brother for the Jaguars. But very exciting stuff here with the Senior Bowl underway. Senior Bowl game this weekend. We'll definitely have some sort of a recap and reaction to the standout performers from that as well. And of course, as we get more news and buzz about what the New York Giants are planning here at the Senior Bowl, we'll continue to update you guys. Keep in mind, Alex, I think this is really important to remember. Last year, it was at the Senior Bowl that the Brian Burns trade began to come in motion. So, if you don't think that Joe Schoen is talking to people and making some deals on the side here, well, you're wrong, because he probably is. You know what, Alex? Actually, on that note, a few days ago, we did that episode talking about the report that the Giants are reportedly looking to add a significant weapon this offseason via trade or free agency. Perhaps that stems from a conversation that Joe Schoen had with somebody at the Senior Bowl. Totally possible, because we did hear some things last year around the Senior Bowl about what their plans were. And again, because of the fact that we're hearing something similar to that he wants to make some blockbuster trade for a playmaker this offseason, well, maybe there is something being secretly worked out here at the Senior Bowl. Totally possible. So, of course, we'll continue to update you on all of that speculation, rumors, news, and of course our reactions to the Senior Bowl and all these other events. Make sure you leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts down below in the comment section. Listen to Apple or Spotify, make sure you leave us a 5-star review, and go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants. Without further ado, we'll catch you all on the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Giants.
Perfect.